Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Yata Sarvani Bhutani Pratibhanti Stitani Cha Yat Traivo Pashamam Yanti Tasmai Satyatmane Namaha. Let me see if I can get this box to disappear without disconnecting. Am I still online?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so we are continuing with the story of Lavana. So just a quick review. King Lavana is hanging out in his king chamber, and this other king is visiting and brings a horse. And then this Mayavi, this juggler, this magician comes and he says, King, watch. He pulls out these peacock feathers and he goes, woo. And all of a sudden, the king is just standing there with eyes wide open, not blinking, for 2 muhurtas. It's just about an hour and a half. And he comes back and he says, wow, you have no idea what I saw. For me, after the magician twirled his peacock feathers, I got on the horse and I rode out. And I went through a forest, and then I went into the tribal lands, and I passed beneath a tree, and I grabbed a creeper, and the horse just went away. And then I plopped down, and I stayed there all night, which seemed like an eternity. And I was hungry and thirsty, and the next day, this lady comes by, and I say, you have any food and water? She says, I can't give that to you. I'm an outcast. And he says, I don't care. Give it to me anyway. She says, no, I won't give it to you unless you marry me. So he does. And they have 4 kids. And he lives a tribal life out there in the hinterland for 60 years. Then a famine comes upon the village and everybody leaves. And he decides to leave too. They're now a migrant family. And the kids are starving and wifey's starving and he can't stand it anymore. So he gathers a bunch of wood and he builds a huge fire, a funeral pyre, and jumps on the fire. Then he wakes up back in his king chamber. Fantastic story. Did it really happen? Or was it just what the magician did? The magician, by the way, now disappears. So I can't remember exactly where we started. Has the king decided to go out and look at the place that supposedly he lived as a tribal person? Have we gotten to that part yet?
No.
Okay. So what page are we on? What verse are we on?
Page 67, verse 26, I think.
Okay. Will you help us
Section
out,
2,
please,
verse
Puneet?
26, 27. Yeah,
Will you help us
67.
out, please, Puneet?
Yeah. So they're in a new section, Sansara Vibhrama, the delusion of worldly existence. Vasishta Uvacha, Chandalatvam hi lavane pratibhasa vashagdhyatha tathedam jagada bhogi manomana namatrakam sanyamatmanasa shantim eti sansara vibhramaha. So Vasishta said, just as the state of being an outcast arose in Lavana only due to the power of illusion, this experience of the world is a mere imagination of the mind. By the restraint of the mind, the delusion of worldly existence reaches alleviation.
Yes. So King Lavana imagined that he was a Chandala, an outcast, a tribal person. And he wakes up and he realizes he's a king. Now, what Vasishta is saying here, the world that we see, your life, your family, your relatives, cousins, siblings, parents, the state of the world comes about in the same way. Well, if it's not real, I'll wake up and what world will I be in? Mandukya Upanishad, we have the famous Gaudapada Karika, the Gaudapada gloss on it. In the second chapter, the fourth Karika essentially says the phenomenal world is quite unreal. The proof of its unreality is that it is seen. If you are seeing it, it is imagination. The only thing that's real is the seer. All right, next verse.
Swapaurushai kasadhyena swe setatyaga rupini mana prashama matrena vinanasti shubhagatihi. There is no happy state without one thing, namely the tranquility or cessation of the mind, which is to be accomplished only by one's own effort, and which is of the nature of renunciation of one's desire.
Yes. So when we say the annihilation of the mind, manonasha, the renunciation of the mind, the quenching of the mind, we have various ways of saying it. We can look at it from one viewpoint. When all of our attachments have been given up, then the mind slips into the state of Nirvikalpa samadhi. The world disappears, the individuality disappears, and I alone remains. Then when the mind returns from samadhi, it's conditioned by that. It goes, oh, I get it. There's no me. There's no real. But we also can describe what this verse is talking about from another viewpoint. which I think is a little more practical. The mind can be reduced to three thoughts. I think I'm a person. There's a goal out there to be accomplished, and I need to struggle toward it. Those three ideas. That's the mind, that's the world, that's samsara, that's maya, that's avidya, that's the karma chakra. Again, has many, many different names. The movement of thought and the perception of sensory experience is not problematic. So the ideas to be removed are I'm a person, Jiva Bhavana. This world has joy-giving and misery-producing qualities. I'll be happy when. It'll be better if. So here the verse is saying the way we do that is give up attachment. Give up craving. Give up egoistic struggle. So if you're in deep meditation and you're having all these wonderful experiences, that's fine. But if you get up and you go out in the world and your boss upsets you and your relationship upsets you and other people upset you and the politics upsets you, etc., then you're missing half the process. The major goal of this scripture is for us to see the self in and through all the objects of the world. That it's just pratibimba, like reflections in a mirror. It's nothing substantial. This is giving up the mind. When you believe that your mind is nothing to be believed in, when you quit believing the mind itself. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, I doubt my thoughts all the time, and I'm always questioning myself. I don't know if I doubt the whole empirical world. I noticed
correct.
that my imagination is based on empirical objects, even if it's a cartoon or something. But yeah, I don't know.
So you have yet to take on the practice of denying the reality of the phenomenal world. You
Yes,
certainly,
is what I'm saying. Yeah,
yes, you
I
certainly,
doubt my thoughts constantly.
you question your opinions about it, but you don't question the phenomenal world yet.
Yeah.
And that's the practice that the scripture is inviting us to take on.
Okay.
Jim, I have a question.
Sorry.
Sure.
So you were talking about how we see like everything basically we see is an illusion. It's part of this phenomenon world that you're talking
Mhm.
about. What does a like actualized person see then? Like, what's the difference?
See the same world that you and I see.
Just the like the connotation to it, or
The understanding is different. So you're driving through the desert, and at first you see water and your knowledge is water. Oh my God, the road's flooded, we're going to have to take a detour. You keep driving forward and you see the water continuing to recede. And all of a sudden you have an insight. Oh, it's an optical illusion. It's heat waves off the roadway. Now, does the water disappear from your view when you understand it's a mirage? Well, kind of yes and kind of no. it still looks like water. But you don't stop driving because you know it's an optical illusion. Is that making sense?
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
the woman of knowledge sees the same world you and I see. But she doesn't take it as substantial, as real. And therefore she doesn't get upset about it. It's lucid dreaming.
that helps. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to imagine like what that is like because I'm in the
That
complete-
will not be truthful.
okay.
That's like talking to an 8-year-old who's trying to imagine what it's like to have an orgasm. Is it like this? Do you shake all over? Do your toes curl? There's nothing you can say,
Yeah, okay.
but at some point, she's going to find out, isn't she?
Yes.
And she will have no doubts.
Okay.
No amount of books about it are the same as the direct experience.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts, or shall we go on? Next verse.
Asankalpa na shastrena chinnam chittam gatam yada sarvam sarvagatam shantam brahma sampadhyate tada. By the weapon of the absence of desire or imagination, when the mind has gone to destruction, Brahman, or the Supreme Spirit, which is whole, all-pervading and tranquil, is entered into.
Yes. So, asankalpa, through not imagining stuff. Now, what is the main imagination we need to remove? The deeply rooted conviction that I'm a person, that I am my body. The deeply rooted conviction that happiness is in the world of name and form. Now, what happens? It's like when you're in a swimming party, in a pool party, and someone drops an ornament and the water is all agitated because people are having fun splashing around. You can't see to the bottom of the pool. It's like our minds. Oh, that hurt my feelings. Oh, they think this about me. I am this kind of person. I have this kind of issue. I want this. I don't want that. That's like splashing in the pool. We can't see what's beneath everything. So in a pool party, we say, everybody out or just stand still. Then the water gets quiet. Oh, there's the ring. It's down by the 4-foot mark. So also, how do we quieten the mind? It's not so much gripping the mind into quiescence out of willpower, although a little concentration is of value. It's mostly about give up, give up, give up, give up. It is the cessation of craving, of longing, quietens the mind. Then when the mind becomes quiet, and you reverse the attentive faculty, you're not looking at stuff. Inquiring into who am I, who's doing the looking. Then the nature of yourself becomes evident. That Chidakasha is the term that Yoga Vasishta uses. The space of consciousness itself. And the implication is when you realize that witnessing consciousness, I am Atma, Brahma, this self is what Brahman is. Next one.
Ayam soham idam tatme etavan matrakam manah param paurushamashit param pausha mamachitya nitva chittam achittatam tam mahapadavi mohe yatra nasho na vidyate. This is he, I am this is mine, so much only is the mind. Resorting to the best of human effort and having taken the mind to the state free from thought, attain to that great position where there is no destruction.
So let's go through the first part of it. Go through the first idea again for us, please, Puneet.
This is he, I am this is mine, so much only is the mind.
Okay, this is he. People out there, I am this, I am Jim, I'm 73, I weigh too much, I live in Oakland, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. All those ideas about self or my various issues. I have OCD, I have PTSD, I'm an intense person, I'm a scattered person, I'm an intelligent person, I'm not a very good student. All of that, ideas of self, ideas about the world, that only is the mind. Again, I think I'm a person. The world of name and form is separate from me, and there's a goal. I either need to fix the world or fix me. And then I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more better, different, gimme, gimme, gimme. What do I mean by fix the world or fix myself? I want people, places, things, and conditions. That's outside. Inside is I hold on to an identity. Someone says, you're not a very good student. Yes, I am. I hold on to that. Oh, you're such a good worker. Oh, thank you. Soak that up. All of that stuff has to go. All. Now, most people are more than willing to try to renounce their negative identifications. You go to the psychologist and they tell you to reframe. Oh, so-and-so says, I'm a slovenly worker and I don't work very hard. And the psychologist says, well, let's reframe that. Maybe they're just projecting their issues on you. You're doing your best. It's okay. So that's a way to protect the ego. It's okay up to a point, but yoga says, drop it. You want to have a mind like a sieve. You boil some pasta, you have the colander, and pour the whole thing on the colander, and the water just goes shh. You want to have your mind like that. So whatever information about you comes not only just from the world, but these interior voices. Your interior dialogue, the way in which you define yourself. Let it go. I was talking with a fellow, and he's changing careers. He used to be in executive sales, and now he hasn't. He's doing better now, but before he really was between positions. And he didn't have the money he used to have, or the house he used to have, and he got a divorce. And he says, Jim, I feel so bad. I just need a new narrative. I need a narrative to be able to define myself. That's what most of us have, is a narrative. Here the scripture is saying, no, drop all the narratives. And we do it thought by thought, over and over and over. Any thoughts about this?
I was just thinking it's kind of unfortunate how society and just like the secular world is kind of set up to encourage you against that. Like you were just talking about the narrative thing, and I was thinking about like when you're looking for jobs, how like you're supposed to have a narrative about yourself, like why you did this and why you did that. And it's all part of like you're leading up to this role or whatever. And like there's so many ways, not just in our professional life, where like we're supposed to have things that I guess
define us.
Yeah.
The way you deal with that is this. So what are you wearing tonight, Alan? I can't see that far.
I'm wearing a ratty blue sweatshirt.
Where'd you get it?
My brother gave it to me.
Your brother gave it to you. So there's a story about this. Was it a favorite of his? Was it a gift? How did all that happen?
No, actually, he didn't like it. He was going to throw it away, so I kept it.
You liked it, so you kept it?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you hung on to it because it's got a little sentimental value?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Are you a sweatshirt?
No.
And if you were going on a job interview, would you wear something else?
Probably.
Yeah. So you are not attached to or identified with the sweatshirt and its narrative. You don't have a narrative about it, just don't identify. Now, back in the old-timey 70s, there was the leather community south of Market. People had to wear their chaps and their leather jacket, and always there was a look. And God forbid they wore a puffy sweater. That's not me. That's not who I am. So they're identified with a look. So some people think they're a jacket. You don't think you're a sweatshirt. See what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier when it's something like that, obviously material, but like it gets a little bit more difficult when it's like, well, I'm, an environmentalist, or like I'm the type of person that
That's just drag. That's just clothing. Now, I'm not saying not to wear the sweatshirt. And I'm not saying you told me about sweatshirt. There was narrative. But you are not an environmentalist. That's just what your equipment has done. No, you don't need to talk funny. But inside, no, there's nobody there. It's just a story. Just a story. Or the classic one they use in scripture is be like a character in a play. So the character that you're playing is Alan Kapoor, the environmentalist. You come home and your lover and husband. We play many, many different roles. And yes, the society itself, that's Maya. But as a yogi, our job is to endeavor to let that go. And again, that doesn't mean to not play your part in life. It means don't identify. Is that useful?
Yeah.
It's not easy. That's the practice. That's the practice. Very good question. And you're absolutely right. Now, ashrams are for weak lovers of the Lord. When I went to the Chinmaya Mission ashram in '93, what they do is for all the boys, you shave your head and you have a choti. So all your beautiful black curly hair gone, nice thick beards gone. Everybody wears white dhoti, white kurta. The gals, they get to keep their hair, but they all wear a white sari, no makeup, no jewelry. So all of this helps break down all these narratives. In the tradition of sannyas, one of the things that it's impolite to do is ask the sannyasi about purvashram. Have you ever heard that term before? Yes, no?
No.
Means prior life. Because they're dead to it. No narrative. So you let go of all the trappings of your narrative life. If you were to go live in the ashram in Mumbai, the fact that you were an environmentalist, you went to college, as opposed to being a Bollywood actor or a school teacher, gone. Just another brahmachari. In the end, even that identity has to go. But you're a grahastha, you're a householder. So you have to be a sannyasi on the inside. It's a little more difficult. But in the end, you leave the ashram and you come back to the world anyway. And if you haven't dealt with that issue, you get all identified with, my mission center has 1,000 people coming. Yours only has 20. All that business. And they do. There's all this competition. Good question. To make it a little clearer,
Yeah.
this is not easy.
No.
This is not easy. But inside, you know, nobody there. The empty. Anybody in Zoom land have comments on this principle? All right, next verse. Go
Jim?
ahead.
Yes, I have
Yes.
a comment on this. So you brought up a very interesting point on how we are creating a false identity with our narrative,
Yes.
right? But sometimes, and tell me if this is wrong, is any kind of identification, like some of us identify, they say we have to be proud of our identity, right? We identify.
No,
No?
that is something to bolster ego.
Ah, got it.
So the point is,
Uh-huh.
at one level of practice, if you have low self-esteem,
Right.
you have good self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
But then we let go of all of that.
Correct. So every
So-
form of identification, like patriotism, identifying with your culture, being,
All of that has to go.
it's all ego identification, right?
All ego identification.
Great. Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to sound good. I wanted to know if I'm thinking the right way, if whether.
Yes. No personal sense of self is real.
I agree. I agree.
It's absolute. Now,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that we talk funny or behave weirdly.
Right.
So I would be at dinner with Swamiji when we were at a camp, and he would say, "Pass me the chutney." And I'm going, "Oh, he's identified." You know, you don't have to talk funny.
Agreed. Agreed.
Just like if you go to the shore and you see the sunset, and you say, "Oh, what a beautiful sunset." No, the sun isn't setting, it's an earth spin.
Right.
Don't be an idiot. So in the world, play your part. But inside, absolutely empty.
Agree.
All right, next verse.
Thank you, Jim.
Nahi chanchala tahinam manah kvachana adrishyate chanchala tvam manodharmo vanhe dharmo yathoshnana. Devoid of movement, the mind is not perceived anywhere indeed. Movement is the nature of the mind, as heat is the characteristic of fire.
So, chanchala means to move. Chala, 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 chanchala. So without that movement, when you're devoid of it, what happens to the mind? What is mind? Mind is the awareness of the flow of thought. Stop the thought flow, and what's left is pure awareness. So how do we stop the mind? The mind is held in place because of attachment. These habituated sanskaras, these deep vasanas. So Swamiji used to say the way to control the mind is to get out of the mind. Stay identified as the pure witness. Don't feed the mind. Don't take it serious. The other great image for it all is the circle in the firebrand, or modern times we can say circle in the sparkler on Diwali or the 4th of July. You move the sparkler at night and you see a circle. But if you stop the movement of the sparkler, where does the circle go? Gone. Now, places where you are likely to first experience the mind free from thought. When you inhale, before you exhale, or when you exhale, before you inhale. If you just sit there and do nothing and watch, initially the mind just keeps going. For me, it's like the traffic up and down Grand Avenue at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a constant noise. It varies louder and softer, but it's always there. But at 2 or 3 in the morning, out of silence, one car goes by. It's gone. It's some time before another car goes by. So if you keep turning down the frequency and the volume of thought, you'll see a thought arise out of silence and then it goes back. Don't get caught up in the theme of thinking. Don't get caught up in the narrative, the story. In the space between thought, with the attention introverted. That's when we initially discover our essential nature. It's always been there. It's there even when the mind is flowing. But we're apt to confuse it with various superimpositions until then. And again, we're not talking about enfeebling the mind. We're talking about removing any personal sense of self, removing any thought. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, ceasing all struggle. See what remains when the mind ends. Any thoughts on this? Swamiji always used to say, depth of meditation is more important than length. If you're sitting for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and in that time, you have moments of real quiet, you're doing very well. And at the end of the 6th chapter of Gita, Arjuna says, oh, Krishna, trying to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. And Krishna says, true that, but it can be done with practice. Abhyasa vairagyacha. Practice and renunciation. That's it. And again, it doesn't mean getting rid of all the objects in your life. It's pointless in the end. It's not necessary, doesn't work. Vairagya is giving up attachment, giving up identification. Next verse.
विबोधैकानुसन्धानात् चिन्दाशात्मत्तया मनः चिदेकताम् उपायाति दृढाभासवशादिह. The mind, because of its being of the nature of a number of consciousness, the mind, because of its being of the nature of a part of consciousness or pure intelligence, attains to the state of the one undivided consciousness by inquiry into or reflection on pure intelligence or perception, and by the power of firm practice.
So you do not have awareness like you have a nose or an elbow or a feeling or a thought. You are awareness. So, what is the mind? It is the awareness of thought flow. Remove the thought flow, and what was my ordinary mind is seen to be nothing but pure awareness. Listen carefully. It's yourself. It's your very experience of I. It's the simple awareness in the most ordinary waking state. Are you ever not you? When do you ever not shine as awareness? But because of spiritual ignorance, I superimpose upon that pure awareness all sorts of stupid ideas, chief of which is I think I'm the body. How is it removed? How are the superimpositions removed? Withdrawing our attention from it. I'm not the body, I'm not the prana, I'm not the feelings, I'm not the thoughts. And who is it who knows the thoughts and the space between the thoughts? The self is not achieved, it's not reached, it's not attained. In a very quiet, subtle mind, I realize what I've always been. But it's so subtle. Most of us miss it if the mind is noisy and gross. The classic image we find in the scriptures. Do you see the tree over yonder? Yes, I see the tree. If you look up to the very top of the tree, you see that uppermost branch heading off to the left? Oh, yes, I see that. Now, if you look very carefully, you'll see that there's a topmost leaf where half of it is green and the tip is starting to turn brown. Can you see that leaf? Yes, I see it. Now raise your gaze about 15 degrees and you'll see the daytime crescent moon. There it is. Whereas if I said, look at the daytime crescent moon in the sky, I don't see it. It's too subtle. So we look at something gross, something subtler, smaller, closer, and lift your gaze. Do you see the chair? Yeah, I see the chair. You're not a chair. You're the one looking at the chair. Are you aware of your body? Yeah, I'm aware of my body. Are you not aware of your body just like you're aware of the chair? It's an object of perception. Are you aware of energy? Yeah, I'm aware of energy. I'm a little tired today. Aware of your feelings? Yeah. Aware of your thoughts? Oh, yes. Now, see if you can notice who sees the thoughts and the space between the thoughts. And it's like trying to look at your eyes. It's like trying to taste your tongue. It's like trying to shine a torch, a flashlight on its own batteries. You will never see the self as an object, yet it's not unknown. Aren't you you? And if you examine that self, it's not tall or short or good or bad. It's not proud or humble. It's not successful or a failure. It's not virtuous or sinful. Nirupaham, nirmalam. Without a form, without any taint. Nitya, eternal. Achalam, unmoving, unchanged. Don't believe me. Next verse.
अत पौरुषमाश्रित्यं चित्तम् आक्रम्य चेतसा विशोकं पदमालम्ब्य निरातङ्क स्थिरो भव मन एव समर्थं हि मनसो दृढनिग्रहे. Therefore, resorting to human effort, taking possession of the thinking mind by consciousness, and laying hold of the place devoid of sorrow, be steady, free from anguish, because in the firm restraint of the mind, only the mind is capable.
Yes. So he's talking about the necessity of our own self-effort, purushartha, paurusham. So in the grand scheme of Raja Yoga, you've got the yamas and the niyamas, basically moral behavior, asana, doing postures to try to be a little more comfortable in your body, pranayama, kind of clean out the nervous system, pratyahara, learning sense withdrawal, then dharana, little bit of concentration, being able to bring the mind to a single point. Oh. Then we enter into meditation. Yeah. Who sees the thoughts and the space between them? Next verse.
Bhogao ghawasanam tyaktva nirvikalpa sukhi bhava esha eva mano nasha tvavidya nasha uchyate. Abandoning the mental impressions of the multitude of enjoyments, be happy without the distinction of the knower and the known. This only is the destruction of the mind, which is verily called the destruction of ignorance.
Yes. So, what is the destruction of ignorance? What is the destruction of the mind? Read the first phrase again for us, please.
Abandoning the mental impressions of the multitude of enjoyments.
Yes. So, one of my favorite verses in Vivekachudamani. This is for those of us who have heard the truth, done some thinking about it, and even in times in meditation, we get these glimpses of the infinite. Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer, karta, and the enjoyer, bhokta, meaning experiencer here, which is the cause for rebirth. Here, rebirth means I re-identify. So much you used to say, people get tuned up and they have a clear vision of the self, but they leave the Vedanta on the seat when they leave satsang. What do we do about it? He says, this needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. The annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered liberation by the wise. So thought by thought, attachment by attachment, identification by identification, all of these we need to let go of. Then we enter into the Nirvikalpa state. Always when we talk about Nirvikalpa, we look at it from its two interpretations. First, the mind state of no mind. Here's the self, here's your mind. Waking state, dream state, deep sleep. When the last thought has been thoughted, the mind is gone. And when it returns from samadhi, oh, I get it, there's nobody there. But also, you are Nirvikalpa. Meaning, how do you know you are you? Who knows it? What's the pramana? What's the means of knowledge? Me. What is the thing known? We can't call it an object of knowledge. Me. So you are the state where knower, knowing, and known are one. And if the world is just imagination, you're in Nirvikalpa all the time. It's yourself. So we always teach both definitions of Nirvikalpa. And the reason being, yes, you need to let go of all your attachments. But if you make the mind state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi itself some superhuman goal, then that again becomes another problem because it becomes an object of desire. Don't worry about Nirvikalpa. Instead, stay identified as Brahman. Keep renouncing, keep renouncing, keep renouncing. Keep tuning up the mind. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Ichchamatram avidhyeyam tannasho moksha uchyate sacha sankalpa matrena siddho bhavati nanyatha. This spiritual ignorance is only the desire of the mind. Its destruction is called liberation. That indeed is accomplished only by the absence of thought or imagination and not otherwise.
Yeah. So what is my ignorance? It's only the craving, the longing, the desiring of the mind. It's my addictive relationship with the world. The deeply rooted conviction that I'm a person, happiness is outside. Not realizing happiness is my essential nature. Give up the craving and the mind comes home. In the end, it's really simple. Not easy. Very simple. Next verse.
Naham brahmeti sankalpat sudhridat badhyate manah sarvam brahmeti sankalpat sudhridat muchyate manah. By the firm mental resolve, I am not Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the mind is bound. By the firm mental resolve, all is Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the mind is liberated.
Yes. So you've heard me say so many times, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind, the self is ever free. What is my bondage? Read the first definition again, please, Puneet, in English.
By the firm mental resolve, I am not Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the mind is bound.
That's my bondage. How does that become effective? I am not Brahman, instead, I am my body, or I'm my body plus the personality. That's my bondage. That's all there is to it. It's a mental impression. And the next phrase, defining liberation.
By the firm mental resolve, all is Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the mind is liberated.
Yes. Once I get through direct experience, I am that Brahman, and this whole world is nothing but Brahman. The mind is liberated. Now listen carefully. Neither state affects yourself. The self does not get realized. The self is already realized. When are you ever not you? Both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. But the mind is what has the problem. Are you miserable? Oh, I'm so miserable. What's miserable? It's the mind that's miserable. Why are you miserable? I don't have what I want. It's my mind. that believes that. That all the strivings cease. And the mind becomes happy. All right, next verse.
Krishoti dukhi baddhoham hastapadadi mahanam iti bhavanurupena vyavaharena badhyate. I am weak, extremely distressed and bound. I am the possessor of hands, feet, and other organs. One is bound by action in conformity with ideas such as these.
Yes. So I think I'm the body. I think I have a goal, and I struggle toward that goal because I think I'm the body. That's the problem. Jiva Bhavana. I think I'm a person. Some goal. That goal only takes one of two forms. I either need to fix the world or I need to fix me. Now, it depends on whether, what are you doing at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? It can change. And then struggle, kartavya, obligatory action. I need to fill the God-shaped hole in my heart. More, different. That's all there is to my bondage. And the mind will say, fix the world or fix yourself. Secure your ego. Own stuff. That's what'll fix it. And it never works. Next verse.
Naham dukhi na me deho dehandanya parosmaham iti nishchaya vandanta shina vidhyo vimuchyate. I am not distressed. I have no limitation of the body. I am the Supreme Spirit, different from the body. One who has this firm conviction within and whose spiritual ignorance has been destroyed is liberated.
Yes, and it's not to be achieved by a vain repetition of the words, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. No. The mind becomes convinced through direct experience, through vichara, through investigation, in a quiet mind, detached from the world, withdrawing our attention from the various koshas, the sheaths. Rediscover who you have always been. Next verse, last one.
Aho no chitram yat satyam brahma tat vismritam nrinam yat asatyam avidhyakyam tat nunam spriti magatam. Alas, it is indeed surprising that which is truth or Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, that has been forgotten by men. That which is untruth, called spiritual ignorance, has certainly come to memory.
When you finally get it, it's myself. It's the jonesing, it's the craving that hurts. It's so obvious. The great mystery is, how could I have been so deluded for so long? How can everybody else be so deluded? Such is the power of Maya. All right, we'll quit here. What verse are we on for next week?
We're going to start a new section, verse 41.
Verse 41, new section. We'll quit here then. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. I don't think verse 41 is a new section. That's the next page. It says Shri Rama said, but it doesn't have it as a new section. I don't know. But thanks. Take care.
My bad.
Is that right? I don't know. I'm just wondering.
All we need to do is do the next verse. Don't
Okay,
worry.
sorry. I don't know.